Well, welcome for another episode of This Week in Plymouth. I am your host, Derek Brindisi, and also the town manager for the town of Plymouth, for those of you that don't know me. This afternoon, we have two guests with us, Kelsey Casey, Kate Gomes, Library Director, Assistant Library Director. Thank you both for coming in this afternoon. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Sure. So we only have about 25 minutes, and I'm sure you guys could talk for the next couple hours about all the great things that are happening at the library, at the public library. But before we get into everything that's happening, I thought it would be really important for the folks that haven't had a chance to meet you, to learn more about you, who you are, where you came from, how long you've been working here in town. So being the library director, we'll always defer to the director first. Kelsey?
Sure. So I'm Kelsey Casey. I started at the library in November of 2020 as the assistant library director. Previously, I was in Canterbury, Connecticut as a director there. And then January 2021 is when I became the director, the interim director. And then I think it was March when I became the director.
So January of 21. Okay, so I came March. So you were there about a year before I was, as far as in the director role.
Yes.
And Kate, I think you've been here a little bit longer than a couple of years, right?
Absolutely, yes. I started in November of 2012, so I'm almost 10 years now in the town of Plymouth. I became the assistant library director in June of last year. Before that, I was the cataloging associate in tech services.
Nice. So you've been here 10 years.
Yeah.
I remember you from my first tour of duty and some tough negotiations we had in collective bargaining. So, and Kelsey, are you from the area?
No, I'm not. I'm from the New York, New Jersey area. So new to Plymouth. I live in Kingston.
Born and raised down the New Jersey area.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And Kay, you from the area?
I'm from the south coast of Massachusetts, so I live in the New Bedford area.
Oh, okay. Good. I'm the Central Mass guy here. So, all right. So I know there's been a lot of things taking place at the library, but one in particular, I know you've been working with the library board of directors on the strategic plan. And I know it's not officially public yet, but I think you guys have already completed the plan. Can you guys give us a little bit of highlight of the short-term and long-term goals of the library via the strategic plan?
Sure. So our strategic plan runs from 2023 to 2028. So we started the process October last year, so it's been a year, and we just recently completed it. It has to be sent to the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. So we submitted that, and then it'll go into effect in January. So we're planning on releasing it the end of November. So there are 5 main large goals that we have. They focus on community, sustainability, expansion of services, inclusivity, and there's one more. Inventiveness.
What is the last one?
Inventiveness.
Inventiveness. Okay.
Yes.
So it sounds like it's interesting because when the select board went through their goal setting process, we got a lot of different ideas and goals that came from the various departments, some of them from the library, right? Yep. And then the board themselves, they had their own. And it sounds like you did something similar. We just organized them, I just call them buckets. So we had like kind of these themes and we organized them appropriately into 5 different buckets. So, and you sound like you've done the same. Can you talk a little bit about each one of those themes that you guys developed?
Yeah, so all of our plans are completely based around, we did a ton of surveys, we did community surveys, we did focus groups, we talked to all of our stakeholders. So we didn't come up with any of the goals, the community came up with the goals.
Sure.
So it made sense that our first goal would be community. Obviously after COVID, a lot of community kind of aspects dropped off. So we're trying to bring them together, bring people together, bringing people back into the library, but then also bringing the library out to the people. So we're trying to do a lot more outreach in that way.
And how do you, I think traditionally, folks have always gone to the library, right? So it was kind of like a one-way street. And so what's the new model, especially that you can get a lot of books online nowadays? What's the new model with delivering library services?
So e-content is huge. We finally, during COVID, convinced people to download ebooks and e-audiobooks, which we've been trying to do for years. So that's finally in effect, which would seem like you would need less staff involvement, but you actually need more in curating those collections to have the things on hand that people want. And also just offering like the back-end services. You need a lot of staff time in that as well. But then we're also looking at getting out with Zoom programs. We've done a lot. So we just had, I think, our best Zoom program yet. Diversifying your lawn, we had about 200 people signed up for that program, and that was completely online.
That was all via Zoom?
Yes.
Really?
Yep.
Yep. And now it's available on our YouTube channel for those who missed it.
And how can we find the YouTube channel?
You can go through our website.
So go to the website, which is?
PlymouthPublicLibrary.org.
So PlymouthPublicLibrary.org, go on the website, and then there's a link to go to all your YouTube videos.
So,
nice.
you know, we do all the socials. We do Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Goodreads, Pinterest, and YouTube.
Wow, that's a lot. So in the last community I worked in, they had spent the better part of 20 years to try to build a new library. And there was a lot of debate about whether or not the town needed a new library. Prior to my departure, we were able to get funding to build a new library, which is in the process of building. But I remember talking a lot to the library director about just being really inventive of how they offer services. And one thing they had told me is that you can go online, order a book anywhere, and it'll be delivered in town, and you can just go pick it up. Is that something that we can have done here in town?
We can do that. So we would need their like book vending machines, essentially. So right now, you can order a book online, and it'll be delivered to either the main library or the Manamet branch, and you can pick them up at those locations. So if we had more locations where we could deliver things to, we could absolutely do that.
So have you thought about using other municipal buildings as drop-off locations?
Yes.
Is that a secret? Am I going
well,
down
I mean, this has to go with funding. So if you would like to fund lockers, we would love to provide that service. We have been talking about that, especially in areas of town. I mean, South Plymouth is such a far drive to get to either location. So we would love to do something there, or in North Plymouth as well.
We should definitely have that conversation because, as you know, one of the select board's big priorities is trying to offer municipal services in different ways.
Yep.
And, you know, I often joke that, like, if you live in South Plymouth and you have to pick up a birth certificate, you have to pack a lunch. The drive time to get to town hall, to park, go to the town clerk's office, get in your vehicle and go back, I mean, it's at least an hour round trip. So, you know, we've talked a lot about how we could bring services, especially in the South Plymouth area. So I would love to have more conversations about how we can bring library services to South Plymouth. So
absolutely, and we've been trying to do programs as well. Like we're trying to do programs at the Little Red Schoolhouse in South Plymouth, and you know some other locations like Algonquin Heights. We do some things just to try to meet people where they are, because you know if you don't have a car, public transportation in Plymouth is tough.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's a big community too. So it makes, and that's you talked to Michelle Brady over at the Cal. I mean, that's one thing they're trying to work on is just trying to bring services to people throughout the town because it's so big. So again, going back to the strategic plan, you have these 5 areas of like, inclusivity being one of the areas. You want to talk a little bit about that area?
Yeah, so we're trying to incorporate DEI into everything that we do. So it's a large part of our strategic plan, and just every aspect that we do, including collection development and programming and staff training. We're very impressed by the public schools for getting a DEI coordinator. And so as soon as they start their committee, we'll be a part of that as well.
Interesting. Well, it's interesting because I was just at a chamber event last week, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago, and D.A. Cruz, his DEI coordinator, she was the keynote speaker. So the district attorney, he recognized the importance of having somebody solely focus on that issue. So again, it's probably something we should talk about as we head towards the budget process here in town. All right, so we could probably talk, honestly, for a couple hours about the strategic plan, but I know you guys have other things to talk about. So if we have more time, we'll circle back to the strategic plan. But I did want to talk about the Permaculture Grant.
Absolutely. We're very excited about it.
Yeah, so can you kind of fill us in, Kate? What's going on with this Permaculture Grant?
All right, so we are the lucky recipients of the Dig In grant. This was given to us by the Institute of Museum and Library Sciences, facilitated through the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. And it gave us a $10,000 to build a garden in the backyard of the library. So we actually already built it. We put in 9 raised beds 2 weeks ago. So we have 8 raised beds for vegetables. 2 of those beds, as Kelsey said, inclusivity is important to us. 2 of those beds are higher so that they're more ADA accessible. So if somebody was in a wheelchair, or even if somebody had difficulty bending, they could use those 2 higher raised beds. And then the back bed, the larger bed, is for a pollinator garden, because we think it's really important to teach people about the importance of pollinators. You know, we're very dedicated to continuing education, but the town of Plymouth has a pollinator plan, and we really want to work within that pollinator plan to bring some continuing education.
So those beds, now I've been in the back of the library. You have this, tell me, what do you describe that back area?
The shift garden is what
shift
it's called.
garden? Okay.
So that is all fenced in, and it's more of like a reading garden. There are some benches. So if you look on the other side of that fence, is where that new garden is, and that will be fenced in as well with something, keep out the bunnies and the deer, and so you can go through the library and through the shift garden to get to this
so you
garden.
walk to the shift garden, and there'll be a door to access the raised beds. Now, who's caring for the raised beds?
So we have a bunch of really dedicated gardeners on staff, but it's really going to be volunteers. And we already have several people who have indicated interest. We're going to, in the spring, hold a volunteer training. So if anybody who's interested in volunteering to help in the garden, please let us know, and we'll get you on our sign up. We're using a program called Sign Up Genius, so people can select whatever time slots they want.
My guess is that the Sign Up Genius is a link on your website?
Yes.
At
PlymouthPublicLibrary.org.
PlymouthPublicLibrary.org. You can go sign up for Sign Up Genius to volunteer for the raised gardens. Now, you said there are going to be 9 of those. I assume all different sorts of vegetables.
Yes.
And after you garden these vegetables, what are you going to do with them?
So right now we have a little free pantry. So it's actually a couple of bookshelves on the first floor of the main library. Mm-hmm. And we offer things like canned goods and hygiene products. And so it's a completely volunteer basis. So we have people donate items, and then we have people take them as needed. So we will put some vegetables there. So some fresh fruit and vegetables to add to our little pantry.
So let's talk about that, because that's a good segue. I've been here now 7 months, and honestly, so you guys have heard my vision. I've talked to the board a little bit about creating this health and human services model. And because it's something I think that this town desperately needs. But every time I talk to you folks at the library, you guys basically have a little microcosm of a health and human services department in the library. No, you really do. And some of the things I hear. So can you kind of talk about a lot of the different social service aspects of the work that you guys are doing?
Yes. So in addition to the Little Free Pantry, we have a community care collection, which...
Sure. So the community care collection is going to benefit the Plymouth Task Force to End Homelessness, Father Bills in Mainspring, and Plymouth Recovery Center. So what we're doing is we have a list of their most wanted items, and you can bring those items to either library location, and we will distribute them to these organizations. So it's mostly things like new towels, snacks, things, simple things that aren't too expensive, but may be difficult for other people to buy, and they really go a long way in helping these organizations. And we're very lucky to have partnered with the Plymouth Task Force to End Homelessness in the past. We did the Care Kit project with them last year. We provided 178 care kits for homeless people in the greater Plymouth area. So they're a great community partner. We're glad to have them, and they'll probably get some of our surplus produce too. You know those zucchinis, they just take off.
Don't forget the eggplant. So just so I'm clear, so this community care collection, it sounds like you become the central clearinghouse to accept donations, right?
Yeah.
And then package them in such a way that they can be redistributed throughout those folks in need in our community. Is that fair to say?
Yep.
Oh, and how many kits last year?
Last year we did 178 care kits.
178 care kits. That's amazing. And so I know one of the issues that I keep hearing over and over is we're starting to see a growing homeless population. You're already directly linked to that group already, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yes, and libraries have always kind of been a hub, because they're a warm, dry place to hang out during the day. So, we do have a couple of people that come in frequently that, we try to offer services to when we see them, but... Right,
yeah. No, I see it on a regular basis, and again, Plymouth is a growing community, and it has a lot of urban issues, social issues that we have to contend with, and it goes back to the need to create a health and human services model that's working with the nonprofits in our community, trying to knit all those together so we have a system. We come at these issues more systemically than maybe in silos. But it sounds like you guys are doing that already, so I'm kind of preaching to the choir on that one. But we have probably about 10 minutes left, and I do want to touch on a few other things before we break, is the DESI grant, this literacy program. So you had invited me, I think it was July time period. There was a graduation.
Yes,
right?
So we hold a graduation. We do GED and HiSET classes. So we help people get their high school diplomas. So we had 16 graduates last year, which is pretty low for us. So right now we have 80 students enrolled, which is closer to our normal number. The 16 graduates was a little low just because of COVID. But we have an excellent program to help people get their GED so that they can go on to higher education or training programs. And it's a totally different experience than high school. I mean, our teachers basically do everything. They are social workers, they are, they'll help with job descriptions, they'll help them through every step of the way, and they're just fantastic. So the DESI grant helps fund the teachers, and then the town of Plymouth provides funding in terms of matching the room locations and paying for the literacy coordinator.
Gotcha. And so that literacy program, again, is, to me, it's very unique for a library to do this, right? Is that fair to say?
Yep.
Because I don't know any other public library, at least the communities that I've worked in, that have this type of program. Are we the only community doing this, or is there other communities that are participating in
So
something
there
like
are
this?
some other communities that do it. Hartford, Connecticut has a big literacy program as well. You'll usually see it in more city libraries.
Gotcha.
So
how long have we had this program here?
we've had this program for 20 years.
Oh, okay. So this one's from Connecticut, and I heard you talk Hartford, so I thought maybe you brought it here. As
No.
Gotcha. No, that's great work.
And in addition to that, we also provide ESL classes. Mm-hmm. So we currently have 50 people enrolled in ESL classes. So we help, we do all languages, including Ukraine. We have a couple of people from Ukraine, and they got bumped up to the top of our list because our waiting list is 111 people long.
For ESL?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So we have 111 people that we are trying to get set up with tutors if they're on like the starting point of their ESL journey, or conversation classes.
And why is the waiting list so long? Is it because we don't have enough funding to support the need?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
So the DESI grant does a certain extent, but the ESL side is a little bit underfunded in the DESI grant, so it has to be made up with town matching, and it's just not there right now.
And where does the school department, I mean, it sounds like some of the programs you're talking about, some would say, well, geez, how come the school isn't involved with like literacy, for example, and ESL?
Right.
Well, how are they partnering in that work?
So for the most part, they focus on, the school age population,
Right.
whereas our classes, while we do take 16 to 18-year-olds, it's mostly adults.
Okay.
And especially on the ESL side, it's all adults.
So it's, to some folks, it's more like an adult nightlife type of program.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's great work. I did want to touch on, there's the library board of directors, right? And
Yes.
then you have the library association.
We have a library foundation.
Foundation.
Yeah.
Can you describe the difference? Because I know some people get confused, and the foundation has done a lot of work over the last many decades, and I think sometimes they get lost in the public library system.
So our library board of trustees, Plymouth is organized where we have an advisory board.
Mm-hmm.
Some libraries have a governing board. So we have monthly meetings with them, and we'll go over things like policies, where we'll go over policies at the board meetings prior to bringing them to the Board of Selectmen, who essentially is our governing authority.
Sure.
But then the Library Foundation provides fundraising and funding for a lot of programs. A lot of our concert programs are funded by the foundation. They will also do odds and ends. So they like to say that the town of Plymouth provides the cake and they provide the frosting.
Nice. Now, and that's, again, I've heard a lot of the things that the foundation has done. In fact, I believe they started the first library here in town, was the foundation,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
it wasn't because of them, we probably wouldn't have had a library years ago. So
Exactly.
again, I like to talk about that because I think some people don't realize there's a lot of behind the scenes fundraising that's taken place that's
Yes.
providing the support to the programs and services that you all are offering
Yes.
over there.
Yeah, for instance, the foundation provides scholarships for our students because while all the classes are free, all the equipment is free to the students, when they're ready to take their HiSET test, there's a fee associated with that. And sometimes that fee is a barrier to them getting their degree.
Sure.
So the foundation will pay scholarships for them to take those tests.
Great, that's great work. So before we break, I know we got a few more minutes left. Do we want to spend a few more minutes just getting back to the strategic plan? Because I know we said we were going to delay that because we want to get some other things in. So what else? We talked a little about community. We talked about inclusivity. What else, in the strategic plan, should we be really focused on? Or should we be alerting the folks watching this as to what's going to happen come 23?
I think the expansion of services is very interesting because some people still think of libraries as the place where the books live,
Right.
which we haven't been for a long, long time, but we're still reaching past that stigma.
Do you guys still use the Dewey Decimal System? That's my question.
You
do?
We
Okay.
are talking about changing that.
Is that the
though.
card catalog? Is that a whole thing?
Yes, only it's
Okay.
all digital now.
Gotcha.
So there is no flipping through the card catalog, but you're flipping through a digital card catalog.
Okay.
So I like to say at the library, books are just the beginning. Yes, we provide books, but we're really the most interested and excited about the things beyond the books that we
Okay.
offer. So the ESL classes, getting people interested in permaculture, doing the lifelong education
Right.
is really the interesting part. And also the things that we don't even know about yet.
So that's really, when you talk about expansion of services, you're talking about just the programs themselves. What other programs can we bring to the town to offer our residents, which is different than expanding our reach, right? Expanding our reach geographically.
Yes.
So, which is something I think we should talk more about, right? As far as where some of our weaknesses across the community, as far as reaching out to those populations, which goes back to South Plymouth and things like that.
Right.
Now, you had one more item we didn't touch on. So we talked about expansion of services. There was one more.
Sustainability was one.
That's the one, yeah.
Yes. We're very excited about the way that Plymouth is moving in terms of sustainability, and we want to be part of that conversation and part of that that expansion because we are a big community portion that educates the public, and I think a lot of sustainability efforts are just about education.
Well, no, you're right, and there's a lot going on in this community when it comes to sustainability. As you know, Mark Reel, who's our new climate resiliency planner, is thinking about sustainability. He's working with Patrick Farah on energy use and sustainability programs. So the fact that the library has determined that this is one of your top 5 priorities in the next 5 years, I think is perfect with everything else that's going on in this community. So, in fact, there's happening right now, there's a Blue Future conference that's taking place here in town to focus on our blue economy. So, you guys are, I think, aligned perfectly with everything else that's going on. Now we just have to kind of knit them all together. So, I got a few announcements that I have to make, so I really want to thank you both for coming this afternoon and talking a little bit about the library. We're certainly going to have you back, especially when we get more into the strategic planning process. And, let's make a date in January to go in front of the select board to brief them, give them a good 15-minute deep dive on the strategic plan, because I think they would totally appreciate that. So again, thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So as we head towards the break, I just have a few announcements that I'd like to make. So first and foremost, the early voting has started. It started this past weekend. Early voting will continue to take place this week through next weekend, and then it'll end on November 4th. So early voting hours are simple. They are our town hall hours, Monday through Friday. So we close at noon on Fridays, so we will end early voting on Fridays. But on weekends, early voting will take place from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Early voting will take place in the Great Hall only. And then the last day for the town clerk's office to receive requests for mail-in ballots will be November 1st. So those folks that want to mail in your votes, please send a request to the town clerk by November 1st. And then last, I have one more announcement I need to make. So on October 27th, which is this coming Thursday, a number of different town hall services will be shut down. We're going through an internet migration and switch over of our server. And so I just want folks to be aware of that. If you contact the Treasurer Collector's Office, the Assessor's Office, Inspectional Services Office, and some aspects of our human resources functions, we will not be able to access our service, so it will render some of our services inefficient. So if you have to do business, I would ask you to do business either on this October 26th, that Wednesday, or sometime early next week. That's all I have for this afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. If you have any other questions or comments, or you need more information from the town of Plymouth, you can visit us at www.plymouth-ma.gov. Until next week, I'm Derek Brindisi, your host. Thank you.